What's up, race fans? We're back at you with another podcast here on the Deep Thread Sports Network, the Splash and Go podcast. We got Josh with us again. We got Marty, myself here, and we've had to take a little bit of a sabbatical here the past couple weeks. We've had a couple storms roll through here. We've had a couple, life happen events. So we're back with it. We haven't been missing any racing. We've been sure to watch all of that. So we're up to date with everything, and we have plenty to talk about. We are currently coming off the Martinsville weekend. Denny Hamlin wins for the first time in a decade at Martinsville, which is actually a pretty shocking stat when you think about how many times he's had a lot of success at that track, and he always runs good there. But we're gonna have to just go ahead and tear this band-aid off. Christopher Bell. We had the Daytona 500. William Byron wins, and then Christopher Bell rattles off three wins in a row at Atlanta, at Coda, and at Phoenix there, and didn't look like he was going to be beaten anytime soon. And in my opinion, right after that, those three wins, we have what I think is the feel good story of the season thus far. At the beginning of the year, I was talking about Spire Motorsports, how they need to step up their game, how they have all these pieces in place, and how I thought we were going to see them elevate. But then we have Josh Berry going win in Vegas, which is a huge win, in my opinion. I mean, to have the Wood Brothers team win at a race that's not a drafting track, a plate, quote unquote, plate track like Talladega or Daytona, where it's kind of a, survivor, last man standing type scenario at the end of those races. They went out and had speed. They've been unloading with speed. They had speed. They had one of the fastest cars there. They got clean air and whooped up on everybody. We'll definitely be touching on that. Kyle Larson wins at Miami. There's no surprise there, other than maybe I guess the biggest surprise was he wasn't as dominant as we thought he would be in that Cup race compared to the truck race and the Xfinity race. He was going for the triple there, got a little robbed in that Xfinity Series race there on a late restart. And then, like we said, Denny Hamlin wins at Martinsville. There's been a lot to talk about. We were just talking before we went live here. There's been no shortage of storylines to start this season, Josh.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting season so far. Christopher Bell coming out and just pretty much locking down the first, four races of the year. It's pretty incredible. And Josh Berry, the Woods brother team, man, last season they had that Daytona win at night with Harrison Burton. I think they kind of showed that they know how to win these races. They just, I think they were kind of lacking a little bit with Harrison Burton, who, he went back down to Xfinity. He seems to be doing better down in Xfinity. I know he had a rough weekend this weekend, but he seems to be doing better at Xfinity this season. And Josh Berry being in that 21 car, you might see him, deep into the playoffs this year if he can keep it shiny side up.
Exceeding
He's
expectations, would you say?
yeah, I don't know if he's exceeding expectations. I just don't think he was in a good car last season.
Well,
And I think I
let
think
me
it's
ask you this: is he exceeding expectations, or is the team, because they've made massive gains, or is it a combination of both? Because I figured he would make this team better, but I didn't think they'd be this good.
I'd say it's probably a combination of both. I think last year you kind of saw the 21 team kind of they were kind of showing that they had a car and they had a team that knew how to put a car together and make the car perform. And then, now we have Josh Berry behind the wheel who last season, to be fair, he probably had 7, 8 DNFs, I mean, he did not have a good season last year. It was rough, a lot of hard hits. That Daytona night race, he ended up on his roof, slid into the
Hard
wall. It was
hit,
a
upside down.
terrible,
Yeah.
terrible wreck.
Yeah.
And so far this season, he's looked pretty good. He had a few issues yesterday, I think. Did he? I think he went a couple laps down,
He
didn't
had
he?
that battery issue. He had that contacting. They had that battery issue.
Yeah.
Two cars did. I think so did Cindric, where
Cindric, yeah,
they
Cindric
just
went out.
lost, where they had contact and they lost power. I think Josh Berry's engine shut off after he left that road.
Yeah.
Zero power. So yeah, it was you're not going to be able to control that. He also had pit road damage at Homestead
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
got into the 5 car. So he's just been having some pit road havoc
No,
as of
no,
late.
wasn't it Logano he spun around? Wasn't it him and
Yeah,
Logano?
well, him and Logano, yeah, yeah. I don't. Pit road's been. I mean, talk about two narrow pit roads on Homestead and Martinsville, but yeah, him and Logano got spun around simultaneously. I don't
Hmm.
know who got into who, but they've been having some problems there. But yeah, they had that battery issue at
Yeah.
Martinsville. But the thing about
That,
Josh Berry is his last season was his rookie season. But I think people are truly seeing the value in. I mean, yeah, so he doesn't have that much experience at the cup level, but he's an experienced race car driver, and he just has talent. He has. I knew he had talent, but he has more talent than I thought. I guess is what I should say. Yeah, I expected the Wood Brothers 21 car to be better this season, but man, he is uh, that team, and I think the way he carries himself and his experience, the way that he manages races is he acts like he's been doing this for 10, 15 years. And it's really incredible to watch. It surprised me this season. It's been a huge surprise. I love it.
yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah. And, you know, coming off of Josh Berry with that win, Kyle Larson went to Miami and did Kyle Larson things at Miami, riding the high line. I Bowman got into the wall there. I think it was like what, with 3, 4 laps to go. Maybe it might have been a little bit before that. Trying to run the high line. Everybody was trying it when they saw it working with what Larson was doing. I think Larson probably would have got around him
Oh yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, I think so too.
I was rooting for Bowman. I did have Larson picked to win though. Had Bowman not gotten into the wall, I think we would have seen a spectacular finish. A drag race. For the checkered, which would have been awesome. But the Hendrick cars seem like they're performing really well. They're qualifying well. I think we had all four of them were in the top 10 qualifying yesterday, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they
So I
were.
mean, it's pretty good, and then Denny Hamlin comes to Martinsville where he always performs pretty well, does well at the paperclip. It was a pretty good race. Tire wear wasn't really an issue. They weren't really last year they ran the two tire types. This year they stayed with the same tire for the whole race. It seemed to work. That was a pretty good race. It was a lot better than the Xfinity race on Saturday.
Oof.
I think the Xfinity race, that third stage wasn't really racing.
The
Um, and I
demo
was,
derby.
and honestly, I watched that and, we make our picks and stuff for Sunday and do a little sports betting and stuff. And I was terrified. I was like, man, I don't really want to, like, I don't know who to pick because if the Cup Series ends up anything like the Xfinity Series, like, nobody's going to have a good day. Every single car in that Xfinity Series had damage. None of those chassis are racing again. None of them. Like they're all like it. It looked like amateur hour out there. It was kind of sad, but I think some of these owners kind of took note of that. These owners of these cars and stuff. I'm all for bumping and rubbing and beating and banging. Giving guys a little bit in the door. Especially to
Moving somebody out of the way, not
short
just
tracks,
dumping them.
short track stuff. Where you're not hitting 180, 190 miles an hour. I'm all for it. It makes for entertaining stuff during the race. I just, that was a little excessive on
It,
Saturday, but
it's a bad look. Here's the thing that I feel like NASCAR struggles with sometimes is like you look at IndyCar and you look at Formula One, like, those are two racing series where contact's not really accepted. And then we were like, oh, well, you could beat and bang in this series a little bit. And then you just see, like, if you showed somebody a highlight clip of that, you went to Germany and it showed somebody that highlight clip, they'd be like, good God, when did WWE take over? Like, what's next? The
yeah,
driver's going to get on top of a turnbuckle and from the
yeah,
heavens body slam somebody. And you're like, well, it just isn't a good look. I
no,
can only imagine, Kyle Busch had an interesting interview, sit down with Kevin Harvick. And because, people Kyle Busch will sit there and he'll call some of these drivers out in the media, and they'll say like, "Well, you always talk about how you had Tony Stewart, who kind of sat you down and talked about how you had this speed, but there's a more refined way to do it because you can't be pissing everybody off every weekend." And he was just like, that's gone. Like these drivers coming up, that's no longer that ship has sailed. And
mm,
I think it's also unfortunately it's just a product of all, you have a lot of young drivers out there that say all I have to do is win and I'm theoretically in these playoffs and then anything can happen. And it just it was a terrible look. We wreck enough of these cars at super speedways. We
yeah,
don't need to be going to Martinsville and red flagging the race and putting them on rollbacks and wadding them up. And
Yeah, guys getting concussions and stuff like that.
yeah.
And it also, I think part of it might be right now is the Xfinity Series is running that like cash incentive or whatever.
Oh, definitely.
It
Definitely. Cause
was
that was 100
50,000
grand for
last week.
Austin Hill to win that race. 100
Yeah.
grand bonus. That's a lot of money,
So
dude, for these race
yeah,
teams.
yeah,
100 grand's a chunk of change. I mean, yeah, I know that when you talk about the overall cost, you don't think of 100 grand as being a lot, but when it's 100 grand more than you didn't expect to get, you know, the people on pit wall and the people on your team definitely want a chunk of that change as well too. So yeah, you have to do what you have to do to a certain extent, but yeah, we don't need to be going that overboard, like
yeah.
rubbing, moving somebody out of the way.
And you know, kind of going back to Denny Hamlin winning here at Martinsville, he made a good comment about, some of the contact and unnecessary contact and stuff like that. And like, NASCAR just needs to kind of maybe step in and penalize some of these teams. And, I saw some comments on what he said. I kind of butchered what he said online, but and I'm going to butcher some of the comments on him, but they're like, oh, you don't want the overhanding, invisible hand of NASCAR to start handing out fines and stuff like that and punishments for this stuff. And it's like, well, if they don't, it's just going to continue to happen, and in some regards, he's right with, guys getting doored. Who was it last season? Austin Dillon last season, took out Logano and then he spins Denny Hamlin. Like, obviously they took the win away from him, but stuff like that. If we allow stuff like that to continue to happen, I think we're going to have more races like we saw Saturday in
Oh
the
yeah,
Xfinity Series,
it's
and
already
guys,
becoming more
because they
common.
think it's okay,
Yeah.
or somebody's going to end up getting killed.
Well, and
They're going to do
that's
it
the other.
they're going to
Yeah.
do it at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's going to cost somebody their life,
Yeah. And there's a couple grabs I have when it comes to the safety standpoint of things. Like, here we've had this Gen 7 car since 2022 or whenever it was, and we're still having loose wheels. Like the biggest thing with this center hub lug is, well, now they can't mess up the five lugs. They can't just zip 2-1 and then 30 laps in a run of tire shares. The entire center hub shares off an entire is now loose on the track. Now we lose more tires than ever. It doesn't matter. At least doesn't it seem like at least one a weekend? Like it's gotten
yeah.
worse. It's gotten bad again. We got good at it for a while, and now it's gotten bad again. Would you agree with that?
SVG lost one yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was from contact or something happened, but he had been out of pit lane for a while, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I
Just
mean it's
it's
every
just
week.
weird.
It's
Yeah.
every week, and the punishment for it. I understand why they have to have some sort of punishment or fine or something like that, or suspension. But I mean, you got how many times this year has Larson almost lost a wheel? I mean, last year he lost like two or three wheels,
Yeah.
and
Everybody does now.
you're losing your crew chief for a week. You're losing, pit guys. You lose your wheelman and your jackman, right?
They've changed that rule. I since don't know exactly what it was. Essentially, I think they changed that because you were taking an experienced crew member, and now you're probably replacing them with a less experienced crew member. Well, how's that problem going to get better? So I know
Yeah,
that they changed some aspects of it from that standpoint. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I don't know what it is anymore. I need to research that, but I think it was Christopher Bell at Homestead actually had a pretty heads up. They knew they didn't get it tight, so they stopped in the 19 pit, and
yeah,
the 19 pit
yeah,
is jacked it up and zipped it back on there for him. Uh, but I would much rather have that, especially at a track like Homestead. I'd much rather have that than have a loose wheel on the track. A
yeah.
wheel goes into the grandstand, nothing good's going to come of that.
Mm.
We had a huge near miss at the Indy 500 a few years back. I mean, everybody remembers that. It hit the only gap in the grandstands.
I was
And
there that year.
yeah, and Indy doesn't have a whole lot of gaps in the grandstands, but that tire and suspension, I mean, it sheared that whole part of the car off and sent it over the catch fence. And that has happened before, unfortunately. And we're to a point where I think the five lug system was way safer. And if that's way safer, maybe we could go back to the smaller tire again, the narrow tire again, where we had a little bit more tire fall off. That's another interesting thing I would like to bring up was they were talking about how Martinsville Reserve rubbering in. Not really. Um, so when you go to Dover, because Dover's an all concrete track, you'll rubber in on these long runs, and then when caution comes out, the tires pick the rubber back up from the track. So the rubber's not the track's not taking rubber. You're having rubber pellets falling off these tires in the corners. They're not even like marbling really. They're like dusting. It's kind of weird. And then under caution, and I don't know. I'm sure temperature. They claim temperature plays a big role in that. I don't know how cold it was or how warm it was there at Martinsville. It looked kind of chilly to me, or at least it was definitely overcast. They had some storms in the area. I would like to see, a track where that groove, where the track actually takes rubber, to where you actually have to move around a little bit. And they did have to move around a little bit, but it acted more like Dover to me than it did
Yeah.
Martinsville.
I
But
think I I think kind of like when I think of like a track taking rubber, my idea of it is more from like drag racing with this. They have the super sticky tires where like you're actually laying a coat of rubber
yep,
down on that track,
it's in
and
the
it's
groove.
yeah, and it's actually building up. You can actually see the ridges
Yep,
of rubber. And I don't think that Martinsville was taking it like that. It was chewing the rubber.
yeah.
Essentially, it was grinding it off. It wasn't
It
embedding it to the concrete.
Yeah, and it may have affected the groove on a green flag run, but as soon as you had a caution, that was basically a green track in the corners again.
Yeah.
So, when you have a track that takes rubber, and then it's interesting. You'll have these, you have some cars that it works really good in the rubber. They want that rubber. Their car stabilizes on that rubber. Then you have other cars that cannot run on that rubber. So the groove typically moves up in that corner, and you have multiple lines. Like I think of Richmond back in the day, definitely was a track that would take on rubber. I remember a few years back in the older Gen car, the Gen 6 car, they had such a thick groove of rubber at Martinsville. People were running what would be considered a high groove at the track. It was
Mhm.
interesting. It's concerning to me that so many tracks don't take rubber now. Taking rubber is part of an oval racing, it's just part of paved oval racing in this country. It moves the groove and it creates the everlasting search for grip. But all in all, I think Martinsville's getting better. It's still
Do
not what it used to be. But
do
it's getting better.
do you think that it's the tire compound they're using? Because if you're using the same tire compound, you're just wider. The rubber should lay down still, even though it's a wider tire. So do you think it's because they changed the compound? Because they haven't reground Martinsville, have they?
I don't know the last time they've done anything to Martinsville. I was getting ready to look that up actually. The last time Martinsville was repaved.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
it's
been
been
a
a
very, very,
yeah.
very long
They
time.
haven't done it with this car. I know that.
No, no, it's been an exceptionally long time. I can't remember. I literally can't remember a time it's been.
Yeah. Speaking of tracks, I talked to you last week about Homestead, Miami coming out of turn two, that whoop-de-doo in the back. Dude, I was watching these, and we both know that these cars, they don't stay planted like they should. They do not. And coming out of turn two at Homestead on that high line, holy cow, dude. That car, if to me, when they were coming out of it like full on trying to pass or trying to keep the lead, that car looked like it was changing lanes. I mean, the way it was coming up, it looked terrifying. I'm surprised guys weren't putting it into the wall right there coming out of that turn, because you have to hold that high line all the way out of that turn, and then you get into that bump that's over there.
Yeah.
I don't know why, and it's been there for years. Well, I don't understand why we haven't fixed that part of the track.
We don't typically, generally speaking, they don't like it. That adds character. So generally speaking, a lot of drivers don't like a perfect track. A perfect track, too much grip, everything's smooth. You want cars to get disrupted. There's apparently there at Charlotte. There's a notorious tunnel turn. There's a notorious bump that's always been there entering one and two. It's hard, you can't see it. Like they'll show drivers. I remember Jamie McMurray talked about this because he won in his second or third race, replacing Sterling Marlin when he broke his neck in '02, I think. And McMurray talked about how he could not run at that track. The car got too upset in one and two, and I think he said, "Oh, a team member showed him on TV. There's a massive bump here, and you cannot drive over this bump. It upsets your car in that corner." And then he said once he knew that bump was there, he could actually see it on the track. But that bump's always been there. Any track that has a tunnel turn, where you have a tunnel where you go through the corner,
Mhm.
it typically has a bump in it. That's a character line in the track that a lot of people have. The thing that's I love about Homestead is when they run up against the wall, you can always see how yawed out these cars are. You know what I mean? You can see how much
Yeah,
they lean on the right rear. It's something you don't
yeah,
notice when they run the bottom line. Like you can see it a little bit from an onboard camera if they're peeking from an onboard camera, if they're peeking their nose in kind of behind another car, you can see how yawed the car is in the corner. But when they're up against the wall, you see how much these
the
cars,
car's like leaned over.
the nose is pointing. Yeah, it's not pointing anywhere near. I love to watch it. So yeah,
Yeah,
when they come out and they hit those bumps, and you know that car's yawed out like that, and they don't have this bigger sidewall like they have on the past generation cars where you can lean on that sidewall a little bit more. A lot of drivers talk about these low profile tires. Once you lose it, you don't have the flex from that sidewall to gather the car back up. So once you lose it, you lose it.
yeah.
So what these
Excuse me.
and you're extending the straightaway by running the high line is essentially what you're doing. So you want
Yeah,
to be full throttle by the time you're at that point in that corner. It takes balls to do
yeah.
this, and
I know.
it's cool to see.
I noticed a few other things about Homestead, especially like coming. I like the track. I like watching those guys run the high line. I think there's a skill set there that's you can clearly see not everybody can do it.
Oh yeah,
Kyle Larson's very good at it. Tyler Reddick's really good at it too.
oh yeah.
I'm really surprised we didn't see him further up. I think it was just a car. I don't think it was a
He was having
driver issue.
issues. Yeah, he was having issues with his
But
car.
I noticed that I looked at some pictures online on turns 3 and 4 coming into the turn and throughout the entire turns the track at the top where the wall meets, it actually flattens out for about 3 inches. It doesn't go straight into the wall. It actually flattens out. And you were watching those guys get so close to that wall, and I don't think they have enough room to get up on that flat groove. But it's pretty interesting the way Miami's laid out with these turns and how those guys are able to ride super close up to the wall and how coming out of 3 and 4, how you have to shoot over a little bit, is pretty interesting. So
Yeah, it makes me wish that we could go back to Chicagoland. Chicagoland was a track that was considered a boring race in the early 2000s. Once that track surface got worn out, it was a great race. And then I think with this Gen 7 car, it would run incredible at a track like that.
yeah.
So it makes me upset that we've kind of lost that.
Are
I
we
think
not
this car would do well there.
are we not going there this year?
Chicagoland?
Chicago. Yeah, street
Well,
race.
they got the street race, but no, we haven't been to Chicagoland in a couple years.
I thought
Um,
you know what? I might have been reading an article on let's go
yeah,
back to Chicagoland.
absolutely. I think there's a large sentiment in it. So that's why these drivers don't like perfect tracks. They like these worn out tracks. They like to search for grip. When you have a nice, smooth paved track, it generally speaking has terrible racing for a couple of years until that track gets a little bit of character, until it gets a little bit of bumps. I remember entering, I think it was 1 and 2 at Kentucky back in the day. Just used to be a meat grinder. There was no way to avoid the bumps. Every lap, you were just running over a rumble strip at 170 miles an hour. It makes for good racing. But I so far the biggest surprise to me still the Josh Berry winning is just huge upset. I think the race has been good. And somebody I want to give honorable mention to, somebody who's showing up to a track with speed consistently has been Bubba Wallace this year. I know he hasn't had the finishes that he's looking for, but
He's finished top three the last two races, I think.
he's had
Top
speed
top
every time
10,
we've gone to the track.
top 10 the last like three, I think. I want to say,
He's running good.
yeah, he is. He's running very good. He's led some
Well,
laps. He led some laps in Miami.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, to
he's
be
third.
completely honest, until Denny won this weekend, I was noticing Bubba more than I was noticing Denny up front regularly in
Mhm.
the fight, in the mix. He's starting to like legitimately be a front runner. I mean, I know when you're a threat to win when you have a good car, but I mean, they're showing up to a track every weekend, running up front, having speed. And I from a early race or early season disappointment standpoint, I'm going to throw Brad Keselowski in there. They just have not been showing up with any reasonable speed. I don't notice them at
I
any
don't know
point
what's
at
going
any of
on.
these tracks. They just don't look good. And
Well, Ryan
I'm a
Preece has
Brad
been driving
Keselowski
okay.
fan. Oh, I think RFK's been okay. I think they have two spectacular drivers
Okay.
in Chris
I
Buescher.
didn't know if you were talking about team as a
No,
whole or
no,
just
not the
yeah,
team as a whole, but just Brad.
yeah.
I don't like that I see Brad running mid pack so much and not really able to make progress at any point. He was hanging on for dear life at a couple points at Martinsville this weekend because he was trying to use pit strategy by being off sequence with tires. And he's always having to play defense. It looks like I have not yet been able to see Brad be on offense, have a car to where he can be offensive, he can be aggressive. They're just unloading with no speed. And it's concerning because he's getting to the age, and I hate to use the R word, but he's getting to the age where if he doesn't go out and run good, he's going to ask himself why I continue to do this and why I'm not spending more time with my family, and he's going to retire. I don't want Brad Keselowski to retire. I want to keep the Brad Keselowskis and the Kyle Bushes in the sport. They're good people
Mhm.
to have in the sport. They're people that you want the young kids to be able to lean on. You don't want it just to be a young man's game anymore.
Yeah.
I miss having Harvick out there. Harvick was a great person to have out there on the track, every weekend. So I want Brad to start picking up some speed. I want him to start obviously winning, but he's going to have to start running in the top five and finishing in the top five. It's concerning.
Yeah. I kind of my big one, who's been really disappointing up until yesterday, finished in 13th place, Ty Gibbs.
Oh
What's
yeah.
going on, man? What is
Oh
going on?
yeah. That's been a disappointment since the end of last season too, where he's
Yeah,
just had a string of bad luck. I
it's not a good look, man. I think he had a DNF already this season. Just can't even seem to crawl out of he's back of the pack. He's in 30th
yeah.
place every
Yeah.
week. Yesterday he was up front for a little bit, I think it was during like some pit strategy stuff, but I don't think he ever led a lap, but he finished 13th yesterday. So
Yeah.
it was the best week he's had all season
Yeah.
long.
And he got spun out by Tyler Reddick too. So he had to
Yeah.
bounce back from that.
Yeah, I
Um
watched those two hobbits talk about it in the pits
yeah.
afterwards.
yeah.
Dude, neither
Yeah.
one of them could see over the roof of that car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a good point.
sorry.
So no, you're fine. I agree. That's another team that is just unloading with zero speed, zero confidence. They've had a crew chief change. Just not a whole lot has been going well for that team at all right now. You
Speak
got your teammate winning three in a row. You've got Denny now in victory lane, and you're just over there feeling the pain. It has to suck.
Speaking of, I got one more. Ryan Blaney, man. Talk about a series of unfortunate events. Two blown engines, a DNF, gets spun. Oh, poor guy, man. Because he's got the speed. That car's fast, dude. I don't know what they're
Super
doing.
fast, super
I don't know what
fast.
they're doing, but that is week after week, that's the fastest car in the field.
Yeah,
And he is just, you said it to me a couple weeks ago. You're like, or when he blew the engine, because I had money on him that week and I was coming apart when that happened. When he blew that engine, he's snake bitten. I don't know
yeah.
what it is. I don't know. I don't know if he needs to burn some sage. You figure out who's got the voodoo doll. Um, I don't know. Go see a priest. I don't know.
Go get
But
a Joe Boo statue like the St. Louis Blues.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what he needs to do. Because he's a hell of a driver. He's got a hell of a team. He's got a super fast car.
Oh
So
yeah, they're showing up off the truck with speed every
yeah.
weekend.
Hmm.
And shout out to Joey Logano. There's been times this season where Joey Logano, I mean, he got his first top 10 this weekend at Martinsville. He broke the record, blah, 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 for the reigning champion, longest race streak for the reigning champion without a top 10. But he's still finding ways to get stage points. Like that is where that experience really pays off for me. Is he'll know when he is not running good, but he can get a handful of stage points in these races. And he just maximizes his results even when he unloads with crap. And that's impressive with Joe Logano. He just finds ways to do that. And if you always do that and then you have speed at the end of the season, you're tough to beat, as we've seen time and time again with Joey in these Penske cars at the end of the season. So yeah, Ryan Blaney is snake bitten. There's no doubt about it. The poor guy. He's had a lot of speed. They'll be in victory lane before too long. It's not going to take them long with the speed that they've had. They just need a little luck to go their way.
Another one I kind of want to talk about, uh, he surprised me a little bit. He was showing some light there for a little bit. It's Daniel Suarez. He's got a top three, top five. he looked pretty good there at Vegas. I was rooting for him.
Oh yeah.
I think I had some money on him. He's kind of stood out for me as far as, obviously Ross Chastain's sitting higher than him in the point standings, but I think for Trackhouse, I think he started off this season. If it weren't for those two DNFs, that neither one of them were his fault. I think, he would be a lot higher in the point standings, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him get back at a super speedway and, see what that 99 car can do this season. Because I got faith in the guy. A lot of people are saying that, he might not be with Trackhouse next year because of Connor Zilic coming up. I hope that's not the case because I don't think Connor Zilic is ready for a cup car. You kind of watch the way he gets bullied around in Xfinity. He is one of the better drivers in Xfinity, but you kind of watch the way he gets bullied around, man. And it's I don't know if he's a little more timid, but I really don't want to see
He's
Daniel
super
Suarez.
young.
Yeah, he's only 18.
Yeah, he's super
Um,
young.
so I'm really hoping Daniel Suarez has a good season this year. And there was a little bit of light there, and I'm hoping we can shine some of that light back on it. I'd like to see him win a stage. He hasn't won a stage yet this season, so he's shown speed. He's Coda, he looked good, for
Oh
a
yeah.
while.
Until he
So
spun himself out. He was the driver I
yeah,
picked that weekend and then got
yeah,
creamed by Connor Zilic, ironically.
yeah, yeah, teammates.
Yeah.
So I want to give a shout out to him. I think there's some races coming up where he's going to shine a little bit.
Yeah. I would say Trackhouse as a whole, they're still looking for a little bit of speed here. They had a bad season last season. I mean, I know that Suarez made the playoffs and Suarez had that great win in Atlanta and everything. And Ross won at Kansas, I believe, towards the end of last season. So I mean,
Mhm.
they've had their moments, but I still am waiting to see that team have that consistent speed week in and week out. They have great runs. I think both drivers are very good drivers. I think Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain are both very talented race car drivers.
And
The
Ross
speed in
Chastain
the
is,
driver is there. They
yeah,
just need to find something else.
Ross is off to a way better start this season than he was
Oh
last
yeah,
season.
last season was a horrible start.
Yeah,
Um,
So I
and
mean,
he's
he's
finding a way
got,
to get stage points too. He's got got the Logano effect to him, where he can find ways to pick up,
yeah.
not be in the conversation, and then boom, pick up 7 stage points at the end of a
Mhm.
stage. He's good at that. That team is good at that. I just want to see them out there leading laps more often. I want to see those guys out. I love to see a team show up with speed and lead 40 laps a race, and have something to show for it a little bit. But they're just not quite there yet. Same with
Mhm.
Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has had speed at times this year, especially at Coda, but you can
Yeah.
tell there's just still something missing, and it's driving me crazy.
Mhm.
I'm, I cannot believe I'm saying this. Like, it's just such a weird thing to say in 2025. I want to see Kyle Busch back in victory lane.
I
I
do
want to see
too.
him win again. I
I
want to see
agree.
him put his goofy sunglasses on and his flat bill hat and act a fool, take his
Yeah.
balaclava off, and
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to see it again. But it's the Chevy effect. It's the I'm not in a Toyota anymore effect. He
Yeah.
leaves Toyota and comes to Chevy, and all of a sudden people are just like, Kyle Busch, he's a veteran now.
Yeah.
He's grown on. He's not that
Oh,
bad. He's
oh,
misunderstood.
yeah. He's a true
He's
American.
yeah, right. I believe he was in Fallujah. I mean, I didn't know that. Yeah. All of a sudden, he's a great American. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I think a lot of it had to do with the Yoda. I'm not
it
gonna lie to
is.
you.
And that's
Hey,
that's the
to be
that's
honest
like
with you,
the
I don't.
elephant in the room in NASCAR is
Yeah.
you have an uphill battle if you're on a
Yeah.
Toyota team if you want to be popular
Yeah.
in this sport. Carl
Yeah.
Edwards could be but Carl Edwards was a popular guy and he
Yeah.
started at Ford.
Yeah.
Um, it's not easy being a Toyota driver in NASCAR amongst the fans.
No.
It's just
No.
how it is.
I'm gonna
I
be
mean, the
real
fact that
honest with
Jimmy
you.
Johnson came back to the sport and he drives a Toyota now, like I almost had to go stick my head in the toilet. I mean, like I almost went
Yeah.
and vomited. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. The dude wins 7 championships with Chevrolet or any of them for that matter. I don't care if it was Ford, Dodge, whoever, and then you come back driving a Toyota. It's hard for me to cheer for you.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And people, you can
And
say in the comments, it's the most American made car, da 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 da. dude. Look,
Eat me,
it just
eat me.
NASCAR is a push rod V8 series, okay?
Yeah.
And when I think of push rod V8s, I don't think of Toyota. Now, I do think that there are Toyota cars out there that are certainly fast, that haul ass. You could do a lot with a Toyota if you're talking about, for fun in your garage. But when I think of push rod V8s, I don't think of a Toyota. And that's all. That's
Or
all there is to that. And
or a Toyota Camry.
I
I'm really
certainly don't think of a
surprised.
Toyota Camry.
They discontinued the Supra again. I'm really surprised. They run the Super body in Xfinity. I'm really
Uh-huh.
surprised they haven't found a way to move that to the Cup Series to have more of a sportier vehicle
Yeah.
in the Cup Series. Also, but like Chevy took the Camaro off the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. We
You
don't,
know,
yeah. Yeah. Chevy doesn't even
so
have a sports car in its family really at the moment outside the Corvette.
yeah, they haven't made the Camaro since 2023. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna do.
It's a weird time.
It's
It's
yeah.
weird because Chevy also ran the SS for a lot of years, that body style, even though they only had that in production in the United States for like 3 years,
Mhm.
mainly for police forces. You still used to see all the state rods driving those Chevy
Yeah.
SSs. They didn't produce that vehicle for a long time, but they still ran it in the Cup Series because it was a good body.
Yeah.
It's yeah,
And
not to get too
yeah.
on too much of a tirade, but it was
Yeah.
tough for Kyle Busch to have fans behave the way he did and do all of it in a Toyota.
Yeah.
It's just hard. Now that
It
he's in a
was.
Chevy, you can be a bit of a bully, a bit of an asshole. You can go out there and be like, blah, blah,
Yeah.
damn.
Oh,
Now he's like the guy, the old man, like, get off my lawn, damn kids. But he's in a
I've
Chevy, so it's okay.
I've been I'm a big NASCAR hat guy, and I've been looking for some nice number 8 hats. I'm gonna as soon as it switched to Chevy, I was like, all right, I can wear this one. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, that one's kind of cool. And to be honest with you, man, the reason I shit on Joe Gibbs and Ty Gibbs and Denny Hamlin and Bubba Wallace and some of these guys sometimes, most of the time it's because they are driving a Toyota, and it's fun to pick on,
It's the elephant in the room. A lot of people that do podcasts, or a lot of people that are in the media, or a lot of people that talk about NASCAR on a regular basis, you just have to be honest about it. You have an uphill battle. It's not
Mhm.
easy, okay? I mean, for God's sakes, you work in the auto industry.
Yeah,
You are a member of the big three in UAW, okay?
yeah.
It is not easy for you to go out there and be like, thinking about buying a Chris Bell hat that has big old Yoda
Yeah,
symbol on it, like,
never gonna
no,
happen.
it's not
I
going to
can't
happen,
do it.
dude.
I can't
No.
do it.
Yeah, there you go. Conflict
I
of
literally
interest.
cannot do it. I'm like, well, I can't wear that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, and you know what sucks, dude, is they're like I said, I like the hats, so like I'm always looking on the NASCAR website, like, oh, what do they got? Anything new? Who won this week? Oh, let's see if they got some new gear. There's a new sponsor. Like Red Bull sponsoring again. They got 7
Yeah.
races where they're sponsoring Cup cars this year. SVG, and I'm just like chomping at the bit for like a badass Red Bull SVG hat, but he drives a Chevy, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But if he drove a Toyota, I'd be like, well, I can't buy any of that. Like, and
Yeah.
that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I want to see Kyle Busch win badly. I want to see. I'm a Justin Haley fan. I'm a Justin Haley believer. Dude's got to start running better. Wouldn't you say that the flagship driver this season for Spire has been Carson Hosvar?
Yeah.
He showed up with the most speed on the most regular basis. We talk about him more than any of the other Spire drivers.
It's been
And
kind of quiet the last 2 weeks, but
yeah,
it
he
really
has
isn't.
been, but he's had some speed. He's lower in the standings than those guys are. He's had some bad luck, but I certainly noticed the broadcast talking about him more. I know he was in the media for being overly aggressive, I guess you could say. But
Yeah, a little
that's
bit.
part of this youth movement now that we're talking about, where you're just going to see more of that. I mean, they just throw caution to the wind. They don't care who they piss off, and they're trying to get that win so that
Yeah,
they can get in the playoffs. So
I think I. I think NASCAR, if something egregious happens, I think NASCAR will step in and do something. But you don't want to see somebody get injured,
absolutely,
who's gonna miss an opportunity at the playoffs, or could end their career, or end of life. So I think he kind of got checked a little bit when he was that at Daytona he was pulling that, or was that
Atlanta,
it was Atlanta. I think Carson Hocevar looks good, and I do think as far as Spire goes, I think he's you know the speed for the team. You
sure.
always see him poking into the top 10. He had a rough week at Martinsville, but
Martinsville
you
has a tendency to do that to young drivers. To be
yeah,
completely honest, it is a tough, tough track, and it's the toughest it's ever been now with the
yeah,
downshifting. entering the
Mhm.
corner, the shifting on the straightaways. It's
And you
it's
heard,
a
I heard,
it's a lot to bite off for a
yeah,
young driver.
Kevin Harvick was saying yesterday, I don't think he's ever had a win there,
He
and he
won one
hated it
time. He won
one
one
time.
time, and you know who he beat? Like with 4 laps to go, Dale Jr. And Dale Jr. was right in the middle of his slump, and it was a hated win. It was a hated win
Yeah.
because
I know Harvick said he hates it there. He doesn't like
yep,
driving there. He's
it
like,
is such a hard track. They
yeah,
claim, but Clint Boyer on the other hand, loved it there. Clint Boyer always
yeah,
had success there. I think he had two or
yeah,
three wins there.
yeah.
Go figure. It's just a goofy freaking track. It's tough on him. So
Mhm.
just real quick, what are your thoughts on Chase Briscoe at this point in the season? What have you? Because I would
Man,
say underwhelming overall, but I think still clearly gelling. I think is a
yeah,
nice little safe starting point for them.
yeah, I think he's gelling. He looked really good the first couple races of the season. I think I had him picked for one of them. He's got three top tens, two top fives. I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty impressive. That's good driving. We didn't see the 19 car doing that this early last season. So,
true, very true.
and
And,
it
and
kind of
he's
makes,
still not happy. He every time they interview him, he's still talking about how he can't believe how different these cars are than the cars that he drove at Stewart from what did he say, from a feel standpoint.
Mhm.
So he's still getting used to how they
Yeah,
set up their vehicles there, and if he has those results to boot, and he got that penalty rescinded, which was big for
yeah,
them.
yeah.
That would have been a hell of a way to start off the season with a penalty like that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, they're on their way looking up. I would say.
I
I've
will
liked
say
what I've
that's
seen out of them for the
mo
most part.
mostly the only Toyota I'm rooting for most weeks. I like Chase Briscoe as a driver.
I
I
did
like
too.
Martin Truex as a driver. I like the 19 paint scheme. I like what the team brings to the table. I think you and I both know last season they had way more to offer than how the team performed last year. So,
I would agree with
you
you. That's probably the only Toyota that I root for as well, to be honest. Now that I'm going through the list.
I mean, I like Tyler Reddick, but I look at that 19 and Chase Briscoe switching teams. This is an opportunity for him to really make a name for himself, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm hoping we see a long career out of him here in that 19 car.
Well, you know me too. I can be a basic bitch, and I like those Bass Pro paint schemes.
Yeah.
It's tough to go wrong with them. It's tough to
Yeah.
go wrong with a Napa paint scheme, a Bass Pro paint scheme, and I'm going to probably throw in a Pennzoil paint scheme in there as well. It's tough to
Yeah.
go wrong with any of those
Yeah.
sponsors. I'm going to be a fan.
I'm gonna be real honest with you. That Castrol number 6 does things to
Oh
me.
yeah, yeah.
It does
That
things to me.
you're
I'm
not allowed to say in front of children.
yeah. And it is a Toyota, but that is an old school Toyota paint scheme off of that Supra that they used to run
Yeah,
back in the day over in Japan. It's beautiful. It just can't be touched, man.
yeah,
And I think my thing is this is good. This is good because we're going to Darlington next week. This can transition us into Darlington because it's throwback week. Darlington celebrating 75 years next week. It's kind of a monumental weekend, and everybody has their throwback paint schemes coming up. And you kind of look at some of these paint schemes, and they don't have the sponsorship anymore. So it's just kind of similar. It doesn't really like ring true to me. Some of them, William Byron always running like a DuPont throwback, but DuPont's not in it sponsoring
yeah,
anymore. So he's always throwing it back to Jeff Gordon in the 24, and you don't have that. But I think it's pretty cool, man. Brad Keselowski ran that Castrol earlier in the year, man. That chrome number, like I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't a Toyota, I'd probably get it tattooed on my body. That Chrome 6.
so you can get that Chrome 6 tattooed on your body, huh? I have a
Yeah,
I have
if
a
I could.
NASCAR number tattooed on my body. Most people are surprised to hear that I have a Dale Earnhardt tattoo. Shoulder blade to shoulder blade, wingspan, baby.
Doesn't surprise me in the least bit.
Yeah. So I'm always down with getting NASCAR. I should get more NASCAR drivers tattooed on me. Like
Yeah.
Brad Keselowski's gonna retire soon. Screw it. I'll just get it. I'll just get it inked on my skin. And somebody else will be driving the 6. Who cares?
Get the 6 and then bad Brad underneath it.
Bad Brad, baby. There you go.
If they
There
could
you
get
go.
it to shine like that Chrome, I would get it.
Oh, dude, if they could, yeah, I agree that they have the best paint schemes
Yeah. I
week
will
in,
say,
week out overall. And I do
yeah,
like the Austin Cindric discount tire paint schemes, that white. I think
Yeah.
a white race car always looks good.
Hmm.
It
The
may not look
WeatherTech,
good at it. Made oh god, the WeatherTech paint
the
schemes for
Trackhouse
SVGs are
WeatherTech.
so clean,
Yeah.
dude. I
Dude,
think
that
they're
Red
so
Bull,
slept on.
dude, that Red Bull paint scheme is hot, dude. It's been a
I think
long
they're.
time
I haven't seen
since
them
we've
have a
seen them.
bad one. Even when SVG showed up with the Wendy's Spicy Nugs car in
Yeah.
Chicago, I was like, that Wendy's car slaps. It just
Yeah.
looks good. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They find a way to make a paint scheme look good for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
like most of. I love the. I can't remember the blue, the sponsorship for Trackhouse. It's the blue. Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain will run it every now and again. I don't remember the primary sponsor,
The
but
Tootsie?
it's that. No, that's the purple one. I can't remember, but that blue paint scheme is another really pretty one that I really like. I refuse to call it livery. I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm not European. I know it's a wrap. I'm
Livery
always going to call
usually
it paint scheme.
livery usually consists of aero packages as well, in my
Gotcha.
opinion.
Okay, fair
That's what
enough. Then
so
we'll never.
so when
Then we'll
they
definitely never
yeah,
do
they're
it.
never gonna call it that.
They could. Everybody else who wants to call it that can eat big bags of shit. Is what you can do. We're not
All
doing
right.
it. Yeah, I could talk about paid schemes all day. I mean, once again, Dale Jr. was just on bussing with the boys, and he kind of talked about the 8 car, and they asked him like, "Oh, do you get to make paid scheme decisions?" He's like, "Here's the thing that was goofy about AB, is that car was so iconic, and they're not wrong because I love the Dale Jr. paint schemes, especially when they went from the pinstripe like E on the side. Sorry, I just hit my mic. The pinstripe E on the side to
Mhm.
the wider E on the side. It just really brought that paint scheme together. And I didn't like it when he ran alternate schemes. I thought that paint scheme looked so good in that Gen 4 car. I did not like it when he ran alternate schemes. And he was like, they were very particular. They didn't want us changing up anything. They wanted people to be able to look at from the Goodyear blimp, there's the Bud 8 car. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what they had. So I
Yeah.
love it when a paint scheme looks so good that at any moment you could look on that track, you could find it. I thought that way with the M&M's car, as you can see in the background here, when Elliott Sadler drove it, when Kyle Busch drove it. I think that way with the Pennzoil car. I also thought that way, and they don't really. Every now and again, Larson runs a Valvoline car, but back in the day, early 2000s, Valvoline used to always run that white and then the red, white, and blue, like American flag Valvoline paint scheme that I could look out on the track at any moment and find.
Yeah.
Uh,
You
I,
know,
I
but speaking of like oil paint schemes, the Mobile one throws me off because it's Mobile One on the hood. And was Tyler Reddick running that this week? Was he running the Mobile One? I
yes,
see the
yes, Tyler
one
Reddick was.
and
Yes, he was.
I see the one and I'm like, oh, look at Ross. And I'm just like, it's not Ross. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because it confuses the hell out of me.
Well, Mobile One's an interesting one because back in the day, it's a sponsorship that moves so much that it's hard to have brand and car identity, like kind of what we're
Hmm.
talking about. Back when I grew up watching NASCAR, the Mobile One car was Jeremy Mayfield for Penske, and then it went to Ryan Newman in the 12 car for a lot of
Hmm.
years. And then it went to Tony Stewart. And then it went to Kevin Harvick off and on a little bit. And now it's just like they're not different manufacturers, different car, different teams.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
why I wish that these sponsorships had more brand loyalty. Because that's what Junior said. AB wanted to build an image of what their race car looked like. It's a brand and an image. That car behind me is a brand and an image. That 38 M&M's car was an entire image of that entire team, including Elliott Sadler and the Ford Taurus and their fire suits. Everything about it
mhm.
was an image. And I wish that you had loyalty in the sport to where you could have sponsors where you have that image. I think Joey Logano has it with Pennzoil. Very fortunate. Chase
Yeah.
Elliott has it with Napa. Very fortunate. I mean, Kyle Larson, I guess technically has it, but it's the same namesake of the team that he drives, so it's kind of cheating. I don't
No,
think it counts.
they were just like, we'll go ahead and pay his salary.
I would say Larson had that more, and I don't want to piss off anybody's sponsors here, but Larson had that more when he drove the Target car for Chip Ganassi. It was
Mhm.
that red and white car. It popped. I could see it. I could look at a track at any moment, and I could find that Target car. That's an image that you have. That's a brand and an image that gets associated
Yeah.
with one another. And you don't have that. I mean, Denny Hamlin lost his FedEx sponsor, and now I don't know what the hell he's showing up to the track with. That's how much his image has changed.
Yeah.
You
Who was he
know,
running this week in the 11?
progressive,
Progressive.
progressive insurance.
Kind of a
You know,
boring paint scheme, man.
and then I think
I
they
mean,
had like a disaster relief fund one for the other races.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was making a joke. I was like, well, that'll probably get cut by Doge. So you can kiss that sponsor goodbye.
Yeah. Well, here's
So,
my thing, is JGR going to have money to keep him on the team if they can't get sponsors?
well, I mean, isn't that pretty much ultimately the demise of Kyle Busch? Like they said, once he lost that
Mhm.
Once Mars left the sport,
Yeah.
Mars Candy, that
Yeah.
was the argument. And Kyle Busch's argument was, well, you should find ways to make it work with elite talent. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. But it certainly puts you in a bad spot when it comes to negotiations when you're not showing up to the table with any backing, any money. It
Yeah.
costs a lot to do this,
Yeah.
a lot of money to do this. Even when you're having success and winning, you can't do it for free without a good sponsor.
Mhm.
It's never good. But back to paint schemes, I always thought the Bubba Wallace McDonald's paint schemes are always awesome.
Mhm.
It's hard to have a bad one. The 21 car, that red and white,
Dude,
anything
that
with the Woods
fish,
brothers.
dude,
Ugh.
that fish paint scheme he had at Miami was probably one of the like most off the wall wildest paint schemes we had seen in a while. And it was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It was like that was like when I saw that paint scheme, I was like, whoa. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like Columbia like kind of went all out on that one. So
And I like
and
the
he had
hats that the crew had and everything, dude. They were all decked
yeah,
out in it. Like they looked like they just got off a boat and they're wearing their Sperry's,
yeah,
like their dock shoes. And
yeah, and I can't buy
it
any of
was
it because
neat.
it's a Toyota.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so and dude, he even does like him and Tyler Reddick always do like Star Wars ones too.
Oh
They do
yeah.
like the Darth Vader one. That stuff's kind of cool,
It's neat. It's neat. And I
I
also
think
need to throw Alex Bowman in there with the Ally sponsorship.
yeah,
That's now they do change up the colors quite a bit, but still, I you almost always see Ally on the hood of that car. So it's
yeah,
going to be some form of purple. It's
yeah,
very identifiable.
yeah,
But and I'm sure I'm missing somebody. I can talk about paint schemes all day, and I could more specifically talk about number font and how I think number font is actually the most important thing when it comes to creating an image as well.
hmm
Bad number font looks terrible. The eight, Kyle Busch has grown on me just because I still have that old DEI eight font stuck in my head. I didn't like it for a lot of years. It's not as blocky as it used to be when Tyler Reddick ran it, so I think it looks better now.
hmm
Obviously, the 21 font is incredible with the gold. Love it. And the RFK fonts are perfect, in my
yeah,
opinion. The 6 and the 17,
yeah,
perfect fonts. And
yeah,
Trackhouse, that one
yeah,
with that
dude,
little slash through it is filthy. And the 99
yeah,
with the little slash in it is filthy.
yeah,
And then when SVG with the 88, filthy.
yeah. You
They're
couldn't have
filthy
picked better
fonts.
better numbers for it. The 88, 99, and the one. I mean, they
Perfect.
just look perfect.
I agree. I agree. I guess we could move on to our too fast exiting. We have a lot of races to choose from, but my too fast exiting segment, the only thing that I'm going to talk about is I thought these tires were supposed to be safer. Thought they weren't supposed to be falling off these cars as much. We're not getting any better at it at all. We're not getting better at it. We'll get better at it for a while, but then we go back to sucking again. So I don't know. I'm tired of the tires coming off. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing them roll down the track. They're eventually going to get hit by a car and going to get launched in the stands. If you do this enough times, that's eventually what's going to happen. Murphy's Law here, people. We don't have to get real deep into this. If this keeps happening, that will eventually happen.
Or
People
it's
are
gonna
going to get hurt or
one's gonna
killed.
shoot down pit road and take out a pit crew member too.
There you go. That could happen too.
It
Absolutely.
doesn't
We
have
have
to hop.
people all over the track. A lot of
It
bad things
doesn't
can happen.
doesn't have to hop a 20-foot fence to do that.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
just got to get over a 4-foot wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
No good's going to come of it. They need to figure it out. I don't know if here's just a theory of mine. It's probably stupid. It's probably dumb. It'll probably make the problem even worse. But maybe try to find a way to where you can't put as much fuel in the car so fast, to where you actually have to spend. You have to spend a little bit more time to where people aren't as rushed. Maybe that will give them time to visually inspect to make sure that it's behind that locking pin, that lock collar. I don't I don't know what else you do. You're gonna have to get these pit crew members to where they're not in such a hurry. And also, I don't know. The 5 lug system sure as hell looked a lot safer from a fan
Yeah.
standpoint.
I thought about like a way with the torque guns to where either have some sort of shear pin inside the torque gun once it hits its torque spec that it shears something in the gun and renders the gun useless. So until it shears that, you know that that's not on there. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't reached its torque spec. But you
So you're
almost
gonna
run
have
out
a
of
gun. You're gonna have a gun for each tire then.
yeah,
Well, I mean, it's fair. They also have the automated torque guns though too, right? Where I mean, like once a gun gets to a certain torque setting, could you turn on a green light or something? Have a little green light on
yeah,
the torque gun. Once you
yeah,
hit a certain torque spec, it should be
yeah,
on that lug. It should be
yeah.
past that lock collar.
Or you bypass the air once it hits that torque spec into like a whistle.
Yeah, yeah, you could do that.
And
You could
it fucking
reroute that. Yeah,
the gun screams at you, you
yeah.
know?
What do you think about this no lift shift that they're doing these days, where they wait for it to hit the rev limiter? And when you get that bop, they preload the shifter, put a little tension on it, and as soon as it hits that rev limiter, bop,
I
they
think it's I think
upshift.
it's awesome.
You like it,
I think it's awesome because I
boy?
tell you, if I had a sequential transmission in my car,
That's what you'd be doing.
every shift, every
Yeah,
shift, every chance I had the opportunity to no lift shift, we're doing it.
yeah,
I will say, H pattern gearbox way cooler in the cars, but the stuff you can do with straight cut gears and a sequential
oh yeah,
gearbox is unreal. Especially this outside of NASCAR with like a boosted platform and stuff. What you can do with those vehicles, you turbo lag gone. You don't have to
yeah.
worry about that because I'm not,
Getting out of the throttle anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
at all. So it just I don't know how they do it. It's some sort of timing cut
yeah.
that they
It's
use
when they bounce
something.
off the chip. When they bounce off
Yeah,
the chip, they got the off throttle time technically to crack it in the
yeah,
fourth gear at Martinsville.
and they can tune these ignition systems to where like if once it feels what something in the shift or once it gets that command from the shift, it automatically pulls timing for so much time, and then you're back in. Yeah,
Yep.
I think it's the coolest thing in the world, honestly. Like just you wouldn't be able my arm would be tired from doing this, pulling down. Just
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's the coolest thing in the world.
Cool.
Uh only thing I got for too fast exiting is right now, content wise for NASCAR, I think probably one of the better years we're having as far as content. Set up a second TV, load up HBO Max, follow your favorite driver, follow the top four drivers that were voted. You can vote on it, who's going to have the in-car cameras. Every driver's on there. You can follow them individually, especially during commercial breaks. Maybe I won't complain about commercials as much this year. Probably not going to happen. Amazon Prime, it's got the qualifying. You can go. Marty was and I were talking earlier. You can go back and watch qualifying and practice
I love it.
at any time. Like you don't have to catch it on air or set your DVR or whatever you got to do. Blah 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 blah.
I
It's
can't
there
believe I'm
for you.
saying this. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. I will literally wait until my day's done, whatever I've done for that day. Kids are in bed. I'm winding down. I sit down on the couch. I pull up Prime and I watch. And they have it back to back. It's practice, and then right after practice, they immediately go into the qualifying. It's perfect. It is literally perfect, and it makes me wish that we had more practice. Man, I miss that. But
yeah,
because I like seeing drivers be able to and teams be able to work on their car, but also when you're able to tune into practice, and that was the thing was it was hard to catch who's going to be able to tune into NASCAR all weekend long. Now that it's on an app that I can go back and watch it whenever I want, you can be as educated as you damn want to be about the weekend going into it. So
yeah.
if you like talking NASCAR, if you like being like kind of showing off your knowledge, or if you like placing a bet every now and again, having more practice and more qualifying is definitely what people want. So
Being able to watch that stuff and listen to the pit crews through HBO Max and stuff and seeing throttle inputs and brake inputs and
yep.
stuff like that. Fuel they're not showing fuel consumption, but
Yeah.
um they being able to watch that stuff, especially if you are into gambling. You can hear the chatter that's going on with these pit crews, and you kind of, if you're listening to the same driver every week or the same couple drivers, you can kind of get an idea of, the chemistry, and how they're
Yeah.
performing, problems they've been having with the car, if they figured something out with the car, you can hear it through the chatter. And, this is, it's not perfect. It's the content is not perfect. You have to run a couple different apps, but it's here,
Yeah.
and it was something I complained about, till I was blue in the face last season. And there's a way around it, and this is what we want as race fans. This is the content we want. And you should tune in, run two TVs, run a monitor.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know
I mean, you and I both live close enough to a track that NASCAR goes to. I mean, you and I both live close enough to, I'll call it Gateway Forever. I think it's Worldwide Technology Raceway
yeah,
or whatever
it's
now.
Gateway.
That I just wish, I wish that we had the old system in place where they practice all weekend long and stuff. You had something every day related to the Cup Series because I would be up there every day. I would be at that track every day when the Cup Series is
Yeah.
here, spending money, looking at merch, buy it. I wish they had more merch trucks. That's the thing that's definitely changed. They don't
Yeah.
have the merchandise trucks as many as they used to, just the most popular drivers. I'd be at the track all day doing stuff, raising hell, having a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I completely agree. That's one of my favorite things about, the Indy 500 is, you can show up you can show up at the beginning of May and
Yeah.
watch Indy cars run. You can't.
Yeah.
You could probably go there this month and watch Indy cars run. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's open to the public, but they're there. They're testing them. I mean, for a fact they are. They didn't
Yeah.
race yesterday. They didn't race yesterday. Something tells me Roger Penske was probably at his racetrack testing his Indy cars.
Yeah.
I don't know. Uh, so
How Daytona used to be to start the season. You used to have preseason thunder for a month and a half down there.
man,
And it just the motorsports juices are just flowing at that point. You
yeah,
can't wait for the season to start. Now we just kind of
yeah.
show up. We're like, we already simmed it all out. We're just going to go cut a couple laps, make sure we don't have a piece of suspension cutting a tire or something. And
Well, they
that's about
did.
it.
They did do the duels this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
You
Thursday.
have to. You
So
have to do the dual steel. But I
yeah,
just wish that I wish that a Daytona 500 would come down to the end of the race and you'd be like, those three cars running up front are the best three cars in the field. Those are the best three cars. One of those three drivers should win the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl of racing, because you got an entire month to work on your vehicle. The cream, the ability for the cream to truly rise to the top
mhm,
of, to separate the boys from the men. It's a long race, 500-mile race. You let it shake out, and the best 3 to 5 drivers are up front throwing dukes.
yeah,
That is how I want to watch the Daytona 500 come down to. Um,
yeah,
but we'll talk about it some other time. The plate racing is not in a good spot, in my opinion. That's another conversation for another day. The short track racing is
yeah.
getting better. It's getting better. It's not great. It's getting better. It's not as bad as it was. And the mile halves are still killing it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So, it's been a good year. I'm very excited about Darlington. What a racetrack!
Yeah,
What
I'm looking
a
I'm looking
racetrack!
forward to it. We got the next 3 weekends are we do have a weekend off, but the next 3 races are pretty big. We
Yep,
got Darlington coming up. It's Bristol, baby. I
yep.
love me some Bristol, some
Oh
short
yeah,
track stadium racing. Like
oh yeah.
I like there's not a bad seat in the house.
No.
And then it's Dega, baby.
Yep.
It's Dega. So
It'll be interesting to watch because I mean it'll only take one really good restrictor plate race for me to be all in on restrictor plate racing again. I know
yeah,
it's not whatever the hell they call it now, tapered spacer racing,
yeah,
whatever the hell it is, restricting airflow, tapered spacer racing, uh, drafting track. It's only
yeah.
going to take one race for me to be hooked again. So, but the past couple races, the wreck fest, the person in fourth minding his own business all of a sudden's getting a checkered flag from the flag stand. I'm just kind of tired of it. So,
I agree.
but yeah, and then we get Texas. Texas sucks. We all know that. After that, then we have Kansas. I love that track.
Yeah.
North Wilkesboro for the All Star Open and the All Star race. And then Charlotte. We got some good track. I like the schedule this year. I'd be lying if
Wilkesboro's
I said I didn't like it.
Wilkesboro's a big deal, man. We haven't been at this track in how long?
Well,
It's been a
they
long time.
ran a long time. They ran the All Star race last. And
Oh,
they might have
last
ran
year
the.
was yeah,
Didn't
because
they?
the
Yeah.
infield filled with water. Remember,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
rained
yeah.
the day
That's right.
before.
People were belly flopping. That's right. They
Yeah,
didn't have enough water in
yeah.
them.
I take
Off.
that
Yeah.
back. I'm sorry. I just get
No, you're good.
moments
You're
of
good.
history
Iowa.
when I
I
see
thought
those trucks.
Iowa was a great race last season. I'm
Iowa was
glad we're
really good.
going back. I'm glad we're going
Yeah,
back. I think it's great. Talk about a track with character. That track
yeah.
looks like something that you and I would build in our backyard. You
Hmm.
know, not engineeringly from a you can tell we don't have a civil engineering degree. We
Yeah.
do shit like that. So that's what I like about that track. A lot of character. I like the schedule a lot this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish there weren't as many road courses, or if there's going to be that many road courses, just keep them at Sonoma and Watkins Glen. In my opinion, those are just NASCAR staples. You know me, I'm a big Sonoma fan when it comes to road courses. I
Hmm.
think Sonoma's a hard track. I think it's a track that had tire fall off and had very good passing last season because of it. I would like to see a second Sonoma date. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Sonoma enough. I would like to see a second date there. Um, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Richmond, it's too bad, but Richmond's doing Richmond things. I like the tire fall off at Richmond though. Be lying if I said I don't like the tire fall off, or I like the tire fall off. So,
We get Indy again this year. So
yep,
I think
thank
this is the
God.
last one on their contract, and then they got to figure it out after that. But
I'm sure they will. Because I mean, Roger
yeah,
Penske owns Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
yeah, yeah,
I'm sure Roger's going to make sure that we have a cup date.
yeah,
Whether that on the road course, it shouldn't be the road course. I mean, give me a break.
yeah. No, you run the brick, baby.
Yep,
Run the brick. That's what we're there for. I mean, that's what I'm there for. That's why I want to see
absolutely.
them wide open.
Oh yeah,
So
I want to see him humming. So yep. All right. I don't have anything else, so we'll go ahead and close this out. But for all of our fans out there, people tuning in, this is going to be a regular thing again for us. Like I said, we just had some life happens moments, but we're enjoying the NASCAR season. That's for sure. If you guys aren't tuning into this, you need to be because it's been a really good season so far. So April 6th is going to be the Darlington Raceway, and that's going to be on FS1, and it's going to be there 3 p.m. Eastern time. So tune in. And the weekend after that, April 13th, we're at Bristol once again FS1. If you are a NASCAR fan from the past or somebody who's thinking about tuning in, we've had good racing this season, so I would definitely recommend it. And we will catch you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.
you guys.
See ya.